countryside. Mohammad Kanjo Hassan, formerly a general in the Syrian army during the Assad era, was apprehended in the village of Khirbet al-Maza near Tartus. Syrian Observatory for Human Rights said that Kanjo Hassan issued thousands of sentences, including death sentences, for people held in Sednaya. Kanjo Hassan headed Syria's military field court from 2011 to 2014, the first 3 years of the country's civil war, according to Diab Saria, co-founder of the Association of Detainees and Missing Persons of Sednaya prison. Later on, Kanjo Hassan was promoted to Chief of Military Justice across Syria, according to Saria, who added that he sentenced thousands of people to death, often in trials that lasted minutes. The group believes that Kanjo Hassan made $150 million from bribes paid by relatives of detainees desperate for information on their loved ones. Saria said Kanjo Hassan had sentenced thousands of people to death in trials that lasted minutes. His group estimates 30,000 people had been detained at the prison since 2011, and 6,000 were released. The rest are missing, AFP reported. The arrest was part of an operation launched against militias aligned with Assad, according to state news agency Sednaya. Syrian insurgents intensified their security measures on Thursday in Damascus after clashes erupted between Islamists now in power and supporters of Bashar Assad. Convoys of armed insurgents were deployed at the entrances of Damascus city. Clashes between Islamists who took over Syria and supporters of ousted President Assad's government killed 6 Islamic fighters on Wednesday and wounded others, according to a British-based war monitor. The Syrian Observatory for Human Rights said the fighters were killed while trying to arrest a former official in Assad's government, accused of issuing execution orders and arbitrary rulings against thousands of prisoners. The fighters were from Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, or HTS, which led the offensive that toppled Assad earlier this month. In the capital, Damascus, Alawite protesters scuffled with Sunni counter-protesters and gunshots were heard. "14 members of the country's new government security service have been killed in the Syrian province of Tartus by local forces supporting the regime of ousted dictator Bashar al-Assad. The dead were ambushed while attempting to arrest an officer linked to the notorious Sednaya prison, The Guardian reports. The publication noted that 3 more armed men were killed during clashes in Tartus province. The new Syrian Interior Minister confirmed this information and added that another 10 policemen were wounded by Assad supporters. The incident comes as demonstrations and nighttime curfews elsewhere have become the worst unrest since the Syrian dictator's regime was toppled more than 2 weeks ago, the newspaper said. Journalists shared that in the city of Homs, Syrian police imposed a night curfew after unrest broke out there due to demonstrations that residents said were led by members of the Alawite and Shiite religious minorities. 1 protester was killed and 5 others were injured. Local residents told reporters that the demonstrations were linked to pressure and violence directed at members of the Alawite minority, who had long been considered loyal to Assad. In addition, the publication stated that demonstrations of thousands are being held in the coastal cities of Tartus and Latakia. They are also led by Alawites. Fabrice Balanchi, a Middle East expert from France's University Lumière Lyon II, estimated the Alawite community makes up for about 9% of Syria's population. The Alawites were very close to Bashar's regime. Their association with the regime risks provoking collective revenge against them, even more so as Islamists consider them heretics, he told AFP. Syria's transition after the fall of Mr. al-Assad's government has been so far unchallenged. The interim leader Ahmad al-Shara has vowed to put in place an inclusive government represented by various religious sections. The country's new rulers have sought to assure religious and ethnic minorities that their rights would be upheld, but minorities in Syria, especially the Alawites, are fearful for their future and worry about revenge attacks. Activists have reported some revenge killings in the country in the past few weeks. The new Syrian authorities said that on December 25, some representatives of the ousted Assad regime attacked interior ministry forces in the coastal region of the country, resulting in several deaths and injuries. The Israeli military released footage on Thursday it said showed fighter jets taking off ahead of strikes against Houthi rebel targets in Yemen. A new round of Israeli airstrikes in Yemen on Thursday targeted the Houthi rebel-held capital of Sana'a and multiple ports. The Israeli strikes followed several days of Houthi launches setting off sirens in Israel. The Israeli military said it attacked infrastructure used by the Houthis at the international airport in Sana'a and ports in the cities of Hodeidah, Al-Salif and Ras Kantib, along with power stations. "We are capable of much more," said commanding officer of the Israeli Air Force, Major General Tomer Bar, following the strikes. He added that the strikes will continue, calling them "not enough against the enemy we face here." The Iran-backed Houthis media outlet confirmed the strikes in a Telegram post, but gave no immediate details. The U.S. military also has targeted the Houthis in Yemen in recent days. The United Nations has noted that the targeted ports are important entryways for humanitarian aid for Yemen, the poorest Arab nation that plunged into a civil war in 2014. Over the weekend, 16 people were wounded when a Houthi missile hit a playground in the Israeli city of Tel Aviv. Last week, Israeli jets struck Sana'a and Hodeidah, killing 9 people, calling it a response to previous Houthi attacks. The Houthis also have been targeting shipping on the Red Sea corridor, calling it solidarity with Palestinians in Gaza.
תקיפה רביעית בתימן, ועוד לא סיימנו, ואני רוצה להתחיל דווקא מהמאמץ ההגנתי שאנחנו עומדים בו לילה כבר מזה זמן, ולמעשה כל היממות